Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern if you want the podcast format. But if you're like one of these incredible people in our chat right now, you can watch us live on Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday nights, every single Wednesday. You'll have myself, part of the show, Good Game Bro, and the other part of the show is Mick Foley, the man flexing his mini fridge in the pre-show. Mills, how are you?
I am doing amazingly. Don't pay any attention to all the production issue that may have just happened because I was using the wrong scene file, and yeah, things happen. Things happen. We have to switch back and forth.
Is that the sound that I heard, or something different?
No, not at all. There are different sounds being heard right now that you don't have to worry about. Nothing you have to worry about. You should just keep. What you should do right now is you should pad. You should definitely pad for whatever's going on right now.
Interesting. I'm afraid to unmute the stream on my side, but for whatever reason, we're just going to deal with Mills doing something he does. Anyways, can they even hear what I'm saying?
Sure they can.
Okay. Wow. An incredible show we have lined today. Mills and I are going to be discussing an insane amount of topics. We can see them all on the right-hand side over there, but some of the things we're going to be discussing are going to be, fun to talk about. Some of the things we're going to be talking about this week are going to be not so fun and frustrating and probably a lot of yelling, I would say.
Oh, no. There is no probably about it. There is going to be a very large amount of yelling. Especially, I mean, you could read down the topics and kind of guess where that yelling is going to come from. The topics are up on the screen right now. Somewhere on this side over here, believe me, one of those topics is going to have me blowing up because I am about fed up. And the thing is, in one of these topics, I was going down TikTok. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but I was going down TikTok today, seeing people defend the NFL in one of these topics. So, gonna be a real fun time.
I hate people. The older I get, the more I realize I hate a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Yep. But it's unfortunate. Mills, other than yelling at clouds and looking at the weather, what are you up to this weekend? What did you do?
It was an interesting weekend. I kind of took like Saturday completely off. I told you I've been getting more into MUT lately, more into like the competitive side of MUT. And I actually watched the MCS, and I've watched the Madden Championship Series, for those of you who don't know, the Ultimate Madden Championship Series. And I watched it for the first time with a different eye. Now, I've always watched it as a fan, but I started watching it with more knowledge of some of the adjustments and some of the, like, under the hood things that are going on. And it made me appreciate the football behind it. And that sounds crazy considering a lot of the people that complain about the MCS are like, oh no, they just run the same formations over and over again. It's the same thing over and over again. When in reality, some of the routes are, some of the, like there's a cover three, post routes beat cover three. I mean, that's just what they do. But they do that in the real NFL. So the route combos that are underneath of that post and the setup to get to that post and the abilities that are now, we know from franchise how strong abilities can be.
Sure.
I think that there's way more than meets the eye, and I'm starting to learn that by playing more MUT, and it's made me appreciate the MCS even more. Outside of that, I'm just really stoked for Dying Light 2 this Friday. Reviews are starting to come out as we record this. I think the embargo is up for a lot of creators. It looks really good. It looks massive, don't get me wrong. But I think after how much I loved Dying Light 1, I think that this is just going to be amazing. I'm so stoked for it, and I'm so stoked that this kicks off one of the biggest Februaries we've ever had in gaming.
Yeah, there's so much going on. I just actually finished Dying Light. What is today? Today's Wednesday?
Yes.
I maybe finished it Monday. Yeah, Monday I actually finished it. I did a playthrough with Mrs. May, and basically we know that you can't do the intro co-op, but you can do everything else co-op until you get to the last mission, and then you can't do the last mission co-op. You have to do it single player. And so we did all this, and then we get to the last mission. It's like, you got to do it single player. We're like, oh my God. And I had to mute my mic.
Experience, right? That does kind of hurt the experience, right?
I kind of understand part of it, but I'm also like, tell us up front at the very beginning, like, the intro is single player and the outro is single player. Like, tell us that from the get-go, and you're a little bit better off. But I still really enjoy the game. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, I'm excited for number 2 for sure.
What's the best co-op game you've ever played? That's I'm kind of bringing this out of right field. Apologies, but
yeah, I mean, this is what you do. I would say if I think about a co-op game, I judge co-op games by like how much fun I had, right? Um, and I would say like playing, and this is not going to be in a lot of people's lists, but the co-op that I had, like the co-op fun that I had in Army of Two,
yes,
is probably unrivaled because it was dumb, turn your brain off, shoot 'em up stuff with a really campy story. And it was just like it. I don't know. Like I really enjoyed playing those. I did a lot of couch co-op with that, and so like maybe that's part of the reason why. But like I always enjoyed like that. You don't really get many of those anymore. I think.
I haven't played It Takes Two yet. A lot of people are telling me I should, and I think I want to play it with the lady at some point. But I played A Way Out, the Joseph Fares game.
Haven't played that yet.
That I played that on stream, did a full playthrough, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but it was not only the best mechanics in a co-op game I've ever played, but the story made playing co-op important. Like the things you choose, the changes in the story, the switches up of where you are, and it made the ending. You just mentioned the Dying Light 1, you couldn't play co-op at the end. That actually was one of my biggest problems with Dying Light 1. A Way Out makes you feel things in a very weird sense if you play through the entire game with one person. It's definitely, if you have not before, I would suggest. I think it takes like 5 or 6 hours. I don't think it's long. It is a fantastic playthrough if you find another creator to go along with, because the end will make you question yourself.
I do that every day, but no, I definitely that's on my list.
In the bad ways.
Hey, I mean, people will say what they want, but EA, I mean, both those titles are EA published titles, right?
Mm-hmm.
A Way Out, It Takes Two. Wait, is it?
It Takes Two. It Takes Two is under the EA Play banner, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
My brain for a second was like, wait, is that Ubisoft? But yeah, Dying Light was what I've been primarily doing, and then Super People. Obviously, I'm so hooked on that. A little bit of Warzone. I think I'm gonna run into tonight. But there was actually some gaming sports news for like the first time. What feels like forever, Mills. Is that crazy?
We're out of the doldrums. Let's go.
We made it. The first one we had was obviously MLB The Show 22 finally giving us a cover athlete that I think pretty much everybody knew already. It was kind of like a football team that unveiled a name that pretty much everybody knew was going to be the name. We'll talk about that later.
Yep.
But Shohei Ohtani, obviously the cover athlete for MLB The Show 22. But Mills, there was, I parsed through the notes a little bit. I was kind of searching. I did a couple Control Fs to make sure, refresh my screen a couple times, but there was something missing, right?
The word franchise at all. They even mentioned a March to October, which I honestly, they mentioned some of the custom stadiums and roster, custom jersey options about they go along with the play the way you want. I really hope that means I can play all 162 games, because if they have an updated franchise, March to October is going to be the closest thing to a new franchise experience we're going to see. I will say this. The things that they're touting look really cool. There's a new addition to Diamond Dynasty called Mini Seasons, which we don't know the details yet. I'm assuming that is like a domination style type of game from my team, where you can play against a bunch of other, hopefully CPU teams or an option of CPU or player teams, and get more rewards. Diamond Dynasty, we've talked about before, is far and away the best card collecting game in sports gaming. Their Road to the Show, I think, took a step back last year because of its online connection. I think a lot of Road to the Show people did not like the way, and matter of fact, they had to nerf how XP worked in Road to the Show because people online were taking advantage of it. Normally, if you're a Road to the Show player, who cares? It's your own experience. But the second you knock that to online play, now there's got to be balancing. Everything else about MLB The Show, even the gameplay. I know there are competitive players that knock the gameplay some, but I think the gameplay is still one of the best recreations of the sport that we've seen. And then there's franchise mode, which we've been banging on the door. And I can say as an SDS partner or as a MLB The Show partner, whatever we're called these days, communication about franchise mode is extremely limited, and when it is extremely vague. It has been since the start. It has not been from lack of trying. There are a bunch of SDS partners that are based in franchise mode. Every single one of us has been knocking on that door since we entered the program, and essentially just kind of like stonewalled off of it. And I don't think it's the people that we talk to's fault. Obviously, community managers don't really get to make those choices. But and I don't even blame the developers. I know Nick Livingston personally, like as personal as you can in these kind of programs. Like, I know the love for baseball and the love of franchise mode they have. There are decision makers in SDS, like have been in every company, that I just don't think see a future of franchise mode, which is crazy considering that's the base of what MLB The Show always was.
Yeah, it blows my mind because you think about, obviously there are a lot of metrics that are being done, right? And there are a lot of really smart people at a lot of these companies that are, parsing through data and looking at analytics and saying, oh, well, XYZ generates this, whatever. And so I'm sure there's some conversations happening with consistency in a lot of these companies that's saying, like, if we spend X amount of resources in franchise, that nets us Y revenue. If we spend X amount of resources in our ultimate team, our, Diamond Dynasty, our card collecting mode, whatever you want to essentially refer to it as, that nets us Y revenue. And so I think they're probably looking at those and saying, we have limited resources. We have a certain budget. We only have so much time. Let's do the thing that makes us more money, because that's the normal human thing that you would think people are going to be inclined to do. But I still think, like, it's a game of short and long money, right? At the end of the day, you can play the Diamond Dynasty card collecting mode, whatever it essentially is across all. I don't want to like single out any particular company, so I'm gonna say card collecting modes going forward. But you can go after the short money, I think, in card collecting modes, which is like getting the quick hit, right? I think there's something to say in making sure that the other modes are just as fleshed out and just as fun. And franchise mode has been left out in the dark for God knows how long. And if you talk about people that are going to repeatedly buy your game, right? If you make a good franchise mode and you just have iterative updates that actually have some substance to them, franchise gamers aren't asking for the world.
Right.
They just want something, right? They're not asking to be sought out after as much as, card collecting mode players are. They just want a little bit of something. Show them a little something, a little bit of leg is all they want to see right now, to be like, all right, I'm good. I'm satisfied for a bit. But,
as evidence is Madden. Like Madden came out and said, listen, it's not an overnight plan. It's an extended plan to redo franchise mode. And however you feel about the scouting update shows that they were changing things and actively trying to fix modes. I think the scouting update is a good direction that needs a lot of refinement. That being said, it is different than what it was before. They're making efforts to change the mode, and they stated very clearly it's not going to be overnight. Probably won't even be a one game. It's going to be over multiple games. I've heard a couple times before that to fix what MLB The Show has wrong with franchise mode, they are going to have to destroy the mode and build it back up. They're going to have to tear it completely apart. There are enough problems that have been built over code for so many years that it would take them tearing it almost completely apart. And honestly, I'm okay with that. At this point, do it. Like, go back and give us the base bear, because the franchise mode that you're giving us right now, unless you're updating stuff behind the scenes and you don't have time to put it in game and you're just reskinning, the current franchise mode to make this big blast in 23 or whatever it is, so be it. But for the love of God, tell us that. Like, come out in one of these times and be like, listen, we understand that we have not done franchise gamers. That's exactly, we talk about this feels like every episode this comes up. Sean Grady did this exact thing. We understand that we have not served our franchise community correctly. We understand that the focus was lost there. We are here to fix that. Okay, MLB The Show. Put Ramon up on that little desk. Okay, even though he's not at fault, sit Ramon down on the little desk. Get your production going. Put your little video in the side. Put all your fancy lights or your green screens. I don't care. Put Coach out there coughing it up and making jokes. But then have Ramon sit down and be like, listen, guys, we get it, okay? We understand. We see the people on Twitter. We see the voices. We understand. Matter of fact, say it to one of your creators. Let your creators carry the message. Sure. Big surprise. Hey, big fancy new idea. Let creators carry your banner for you. Oh, how about that? It's not like any company's ever thought of that before, right? Say something. Say something about it. You know what we're going to get? When they start these show reveals in the premiere series in February, March, when they're coming up to the April 5th release date, we're going to see Diamond Dynasty, Diamond Dynasty, gameplay, 18 million fielding animations. Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. And then franchise Road to the Show, 18 legend reveals, all in like one 30-minute thing. And they're gonna go, well, we've tested 100 times. I don't want to hear it anymore. It sucks.
Yeah.
Because I was super excited for Ohtani. I mean, I knew Ohtani was. I think we all knew it. I was super excited for it.
I mean, you hate to see it, but as much you talk about sort of MLB The Show needing to deconstruct franchise mode and just build it back up so that they can have some sort of iterative process, just ultimately commit to that at some point. A game that sort of was in a way worse state. MLB The Show was in a good state, I would say overall, but a game was in a way worse state, or a franchise is in a really bad state, and is now, after this first little trailer that is dropped for WWE 2K22, as a very, very lightly interested wrestling fan, I gotta admit that trailer looked kind of fire.
The trailer looked amazing. The trailer looked awesome. There he is. And what I loved about it was 2K20 was one of the biggest dumpster fires ever released in as a WWE game. And I was old enough to play WWE Raw, okay, by Acclaim. They sat down and they put an uncut match together. There were no edits. It was a bunch of developers sitting around as the match played out, no edits. Yep. And that to me says, listen, we know what 2K20 was. We understand the bug-filled mess it was. We know we took a year off. This is us trying to be open with you. This is us trying to give you this. Hey, look, this is what we're doing. Better or worse, whatever you feel about it, this is what we're doing. And I loved it. I loved every single second of it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I watched the gameplay. I think it was Rey Mysterio Jr. and is it Daniel Priest? I don't know who that is.
Damian Priest.
I was close. I got the first.
We'll get you there. Don't worry.
Yeah, one day. Maybe we'll talk about wrestling on the podcast one day. But no, I watched the gameplay and visually, I was kind of impressed because I didn't think 2K20 looked even remotely good at all. I was like, what generation was this game made? But visually, it looked great. The lighting looked fantastic. The gameplay actually looked sort of responsive, and it was actually making sense to me when I was watching it, because I felt always before wrestling games had just been kind of wonky, or the controls just didn't feel responsive when I tried them out. But I was cautiously optimistic. I think Moss Fan had sort of mentioned in our Twitch chat, but that's how I sort of felt after watching it.
And the thing about WWE 2K22 and WWE games in general is they are in a weird spot when it comes to genre, because when you play head to head, it at its core, it's got to be a fighting game, right? But the problem with wrestling is, at wrestling's core, wrestling is a storytelling experience. When you watch a wrestling match, it's an athletic opera. And to pull that over into a game where you have to have button presses and, again, fighting games where you look at timing and all that stuff, it's very tough to do that without skewing the experience for somebody playing. Perfect example, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is small. He's a cruiserweight. That's what he is. But how do you play him evenly with some of the larger wrestlers in that head-to-head experience, while part of Rey Mysterio's story in real life is that he was one of the first cruiserweights to ever elevate to main event because of his size. He was able to use his speed. He was able to use his creativity, his high-flying ability. That doesn't always translate in WWE. That story doesn't. And that's what I'm interested to see, if the story translates over into the gameplay as well, and not just this competitive button masher.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it now. We'll see. Obviously, I want to see some more information about gameplay and modes and sort of obviously what they're doing at that point. But if I had a meter, saying not interested, maybe buying, possibly buying, I'm probably in the possibly buying. So we'll see what happens whenever that game drops.
I'm right there with you. I'm with Moss Fan, cautiously optimistic. What I'm not cautiously optimistic at is some of the NBA stories that have come out, especially Ben Simmons. Joel Embiid is being, I won't say wasted, but he's in the prime of his career. He is carrying the 76ers on his back, and it looks like Daryl Morey is content just sitting with Ben Simmons until a mega blockbuster deal comes through. Problem is it doesn't look like anyone else in the NBA is ready to deal a mega blockbuster for Ben Simmons. Where does this go?
This is such a weird, I think, story right now. Sacramento, who was the team probably the most likely to make a trade or was beating down the door to make the trade, is just not officially, but the rumor is they essentially said, like, all right, we're done. Like, we're tired of giving Daryl Morey our NBA 2K trade finder options that we're essentially throwing at him and him just denying it for whatever reason.
Right.
This is a situation that the more and more it goes, I don't think we're seeing Ben Simmons get traded at all this season, which is just so weird to me. You were wasting Joel Embiid's prime. Joel Embiid is having an MVP caliber season right now. And I honestly think the Sixers would be a top 2 seed in the East if they had a Ben Simmons that was healthy and functioning and playing the way that we would assume Ben Simmons plays. No jump shots, getting to the hoop, playing great perimeter defense, things like that we expect from Ben Simmons, not the passing when Trae Young's within 2 feet of you.
Right.
If I'm Philly, I think where I'm at right now is I think this is more disrespectful what Daryl Morey is doing than the whole trust the process movement. Like, I know that trust the process was controversial. I think when you look at it in hindsight, obviously it worked out for them. But the trust the process movement wasn't anything that was it was a very transparent message, right? Like the Sam Hinkie, like, we're tanking, we're looking for draft picks. It's what OKC is doing right now. We see this every decade where there's a team or two that sort of just says, like, hey, look, it's time to blow it up. We're going to maximize our potential talent to get draft picks. And it does differently for some teams, right? Sacramento's a team that's been trying to do it for 12 years or whatever it's essentially been, and it hasn't really worked out for them. But OKC's doing it, and you're seeing some young studs there, and they're starting to build up. You're seeing Philly and all the studs they got, some of they had to get rid of, obviously, but it's worked out really well for them. To me, this is a thing that's like, I feel like Daryl Morey needs to do 2 things. One of 2 things here. He either needs to resign if he's not going to make any actual movement to trade Ben Simmons, because you are doing an egregious just error to the city of Philadelphia.
Good luck with that.
Sports team.
Good luck with that.
Not going to happen. But the other option that's more realistic is go and get a Philly legend. You literally have a guy that has been wanting to get into the organization and work with them in some official capacity. The greatest 76er of the last 25, 30 years, whatever you want to essentially call it, has no relationship with Philly. Go get Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Go get Allen Iverson and say, look, this is a dude that is the most mentally tough and prepared person we have had in that franchise. Again, the last 20 to 30 years. I'm not going to speak about people prior to that because there's a whole different rationale for that.
Right.
But Allen Iverson was the most famous 76er from this last 20 to 30 years. He dealt with the worst possible team other than what LeBron took in 07 in the NBA Finals and carried them. He took aging veterans and carried them. He got physically beat up night and night again. Let Allen Iverson work with him. If there is one dude that can help Ben Simmons get out of this mental block and deal, I'm not speaking about the mental health side of it. Obviously, you need professionals that are trained in that area. But from a basketball mental block, from his jump shot to his awareness in the court of what he's essentially doing to feeling more confident in his play, Allen Iverson is a dude that can help him fix that around. And he is literally right there yearning to be a part. There are article after article of Allen Iverson saying, I would love to work with the 76ers in official capacity. I'm just waiting on them to call me.
Right.
Daryl Morey make the call.
You think Iverson is the guy you want to bring in and talk to your team?
No, not to the team. To Ben Simmons.
Just to Ben Simmons. So you're literally going to bring
solely Ben Simmons.
Allen Iverson in as a mentor to Ben Simmons.
100%.
I think, man, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea. I also worry that, Iverson wasn't the best with the front office when he was there either.
Yeah, but we're looking at young Iverson versus Iverson now. Look at Iverson in the last 5 to 10 years and how he's sort of matured as an older man and like his point of view now. I'm looking at that Iverson from interviews and what I think he would do for Simmons.
I get it. I get it. I don't disagree, but I also don't think Ben Simmons has played his last minutes as a 76er. I think it's gone too far. Sure. So I'm not really sure. This is squarely. At first, I was blaming Ben Simmons. I was saying, hey, look, Simmons is part of the problem here. The more I wait on this, the more I'm blaming Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey has not made action on this. You have to know the second Ben Simmons steps up and is like, I'm not playing for you anymore, every other team in the league knows that. And they're not going to give you some massive package for a guy that they know you want to unload. And then they're also taking on a huge risk of, What if Ben Simmons does this to us and we're taking on his max contract? The contract is the other big thing here is you've got to match money with Ben Simmons, and that's why you start to hear names like Dame Lillard, like the bigger guys that have some money on their deal to try to match that up because of NBA rules for that. I don't see an amicable way this works. It's either going to be Daryl Morey getting fired for this situation, which I don't see happening, or finally acquiescing and being like, "Hey, look, all right, I'm gonna send him out for a couple of expiring contracts." The problem here is they have to do something. Embiid cannot carry this team as one man. I like Tobias Harris. I think Tyrese Maxey has been very, very good this year. I love some of the pieces they have around Embiid. That team, the way it is built, is not enough to win a championship.
Yeah, agreed. I think Maxey's an absolute stud and one of the better draft picks they've had from a guard situation because they've obviously been not so. Their history on drafting guards hasn't necessarily been great over this last 5, 7, 8 years, whatever it's essentially been.
Agreed.
But I don't think Ben Simmons is going to play there long term. But I think Allen Iverson, my rationale for Allen Iverson is get him there to get him focused and be like, I'm ready to commit back to basketball, but it's not here in Philly. Force the trade, make the trade happen with Morey, get that whole situation resolved, and move on. Because Joel Embiid has, assuming he's healthy, probably you could argue 3-ish years where he's going to be able to play at this level, and then like most big men, it goes downhill. So either more you step up and you make something happen, or you got to step down and let somebody else make it happen.
Sixers are sitting second in the East right now at 31-19. They're 8-2 over their last 10 on a 5-game winning streak. But again, all it's going to take is one minor injury, and I'm not talking major. It'll take a minor injury to Embiid to watch that go burning down. So, let's talk about more going on the court as we have our all-stars announced. The starters, at least. We don't know the bench yet. Believe me, the starters are going to change what the bench looks like at this point because of a couple of them. So, on the Eastern Conference, we have Kevin Durant. And to remind, this is a fan voting. We have Kevin Durant with the Nets, Giannis Antetokounmpo with the Bucks, and Joel Embiid, previously announced, with the Sixers, Trae Young at guard, and DeMar DeRozan at guard. All 5 of these guys more than deserving. I don't know that I think anyone got snubbed in All-Star voting for this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with the East, and I think the other thing for people to remember, this is the pool that people are gonna be able to pull from, right? Your captains are Kevin Durant and LeBron James, and so those guys are gonna essentially have a draft where Giannis probably doesn't get picked last this time around.
Correct. And the voting, just for the voting results for the East side, just outside of the voting for that was for the front court. Jason Tatum just missed. Jared Allen was in that voting out of Cleveland, which is incredible for fan voting. And Jimmy Butler, and I also want to call out Miles Bridges, who is having, we've talked about him before, a fantastic season. On the guard side, Zach LaVine, James Harden, the names you know, and then LaMelo Ball and Fred VanVleet getting some attention. This is one of the reasons I don't mind NBA fan voting, because normally they get it pretty right. NBA fans tend to get it pretty right. And then you look at the Western Conference starters, and I like them. Don't get me wrong. LeBron James is always going to win a fan vote. We'll talk about him in a second. Nikola Jokic, who is probably the MVP so far this year. Steph Curry. Okay. Ja Morant, probably the most exciting player in the game right now. And Andrew Wiggins as an all-star starter. Let me explain something to you. I like that Wiggins is a two-way player. He's a gel guy for that team. He's not the 4th best player on the court right now. I still put Dre above him. Clay's back in the court. Obviously, he's not going to get a lot of the all. I don't think he's even eligible for it. No. I get it. I don't know where this voting happened that Andrew Wiggins got in this.
Did you not read what happened?
No. I actually missed out on why Wiggins is here.
Okay, so when I saw this, first of all, I was like, this is a troll. Like, this is a like one of those accounts where someone changes their name or whatever, and you're like, oh, it just went viral, but it's not actually a real thing. No, it's legit. So once I saw it was legit, I'm like, there has to be something. The first day or two, I didn't see anything essentially saying why this happened, but I dug deep and I found out what the Warriors did. They are literal geniuses. If there is one thing I've learned about when there's an irregularity in voting or just some online poll, there's a lot of things that could happen, but there are two groups that are somehow almost always involved, okay? One of those groups are anime fans. The other group, K-pop fans.
Oh, no.
K-pop fans are the craziest fans on the planet. And this, Mills, you think I'm trolling? What the Warriors did is they went, I'm going to find the dude's name, Warriors K-pop. The Warriors went and they signed a K-pop star. The K-pop army. This is the story right here.
Oh my God! They went.
Sportingnews.com.
Hold on, the K-pop. Now, so we're clear. K-pop fans, I stan. I've seen what you've done to some of the white supremacists on Twitter these days, and taken over their hashtags. I'm here for you. I stand constantly. Well, how did you vote Andrew Wiggins into the All-Star game?
So the Warriors made a K-pop star. I think his name is Bam Bam. I don't know. I forgot his name at this point. Wait.
They're all the.
Anyways, yeah, I think his name is Bam Bam. But basically, this guy,
like the
they made
Flintstone.
him. Wait, he has 3.5. Wait, no. I don't even know what his name.
Wait,
Bam
hold on.
Bam.
Wait,
Here we
Bam
go.
Bam. Bam Bam was the rubble though, wasn't he? It was
Bam
Fred
Bam 1A.
Flintstone.
That was the kid.
It was Fred and Wilma, right? And then Barney and what's the wife's name? Barney and the wife. But then
We're old.
Who was the kid Flintstone?
The kid was Bam Bam with the little.
But Bam Bam was the other one. It was Fred and Wilma, Barney and somebody.
Bam Bam.
But then the kid who was the kid Flintstone? Pebbles?
Literally, no one knows.
Pebbles Flintstone.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it Pebbles Flintstone,
Okay.
but it was Bam Bam Rubble. So it's not a Flintstone, it's a Rubble.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So, this dude's name is Bam Bam 1A. That's his Twitter handle. This is a K-pop star that has 9.6 million Twitter followers, okay?
Of course he does.
He tweeted out on January 7th because the Warriors, in preparation for the All-Star weekend, they made him an honorary ambassador for the Warriors officially. So he tweets out, "It's the best time to begin 2022. He is one of the best two-way players. Wiggs deserve to be an all-star. Vote Andrew Wiggins into the 2022 NBA All-Star game. And I can't wait to meet you all very soon. Hashtag Andrew Wiggins, hashtag NBA All-Star." This was retweeted over 37,000 times. It had 72,000 likes to it. And he did it across multiple platforms is essentially what happened. So the Warriors literally went and enlisted K-pop and K-pop fans and stans to get Andrew Wiggins as an all-star. This is the craziest thing that
They
I've
didn't
seen,
just
but
do it
it's
to
so
Wiggins,
brilliant.
by the way. They didn't just do it to Wiggins. He has tweets for Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. And let me read you the final voting for the Western Conference. It's LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green. That's before Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, all more than deserving. On the guard side, it's Steph Curry was number one. I'm okay with that. Ja Morant, although I think Ja Morant should have been number one, honestly. Luka Doncic, but then Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, who just came back. This is insane.
K-pop. We got any K-pop fans?
Can we get
Any
a K-pop overplayed?
celebrities?
The overplayed
Vote for us.
retweet? How much do you think they paid that man for that? You know they paid him for that, right?
I mean, to make him an ambassador, they're probably doing a ton of stuff, but I would imagine it was like a couple mil for the deal. Because to get the tweets on a $9.6 million or 9.6 follower count, I'm sure his IG is probably stupid. It's probably like 25, 30 mil, if I'd imagine. Yeah, I would say they probably paid like 1 to 2 mil for a deal
Gotcha.
to get him to show up for a couple of games and put out a couple of tweets and get Andrew Wiggins as starter in the Western Conference.
Absolutely insane. I'm in awe. I mean, to be fair, starter wise, outside of Wiggins, I'm okay with who's starting on both sides.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask because I have to ask: does LeBron James deserve to be starting this All-Star game?
Absolutely. LeBron is absolutely killing it. If we want to talk about anybody in the Lakers absolutely destroying it, it's LeBron James. Who's not destroying it? Literally everyone else on his team. Only person that's destroying anything in the Lakers right now is Anthony Davis when it comes to his ligaments and his bones and the rest of his body. There is nothing anyone else in the Lakers is doing to destroy anything positive other than LeBron James. It is unbelievable. Look, 18 years in the league. This man is 29.1 points per game, 6.3 assists per game, and 7.7 rebounds per game. That is more than Steph Curry in every single one of those categories. That is more than Jokic, except for assists per game. He's tied. No, actually, I lied. Sorry. He has just a little under Jokic, but Jokic obviously has more rebounds as he plays underneath the bucket the entire time. LeBron doing this at this age is so unbelievable. Then you got Wiggins, 18 points per game, 2 assists per game, 4 rebounds per game. I'm not saying he couldn't or shouldn't be an all-star, but Jesus Christ, this man's starting? And you want to question LeBron James?
I mean, I'm just questioning, like, he's had some down spots, mostly because they traded for another ball-heavy player that is a really bad fit for the offense. But hey, big three, let's go.
I can't wait for Russell Westbrook to get traded for John Wall for the second time.
Let's talk about something. Let's talk about something a little bit more jovial, and that is the Chiefs. Oh, the Chiefs! The Chiefs are out. Did you know the Chiefs are out? Joey Burr. The kids are telling me that's what they're calling him, is Joey Burr. Listen, I'm just telling you what they're calling him. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Chiefs in overtime, and guess what? They didn't need. They played defense. They didn't care who got the ball. They played defense. Or by playing defense, Patrick Mahomes threw into double coverage. Jesse Bates batted the ball back to Von Bell, who ran it back. And then once the Bengals had the ball, it was essentially over. Is this first? Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals real quick, okay?
Yeah.
This is the start of a dynasty, right?
I just want to take a moment before I answer that question to say we both sat on the show when the draft was coming around, and we said if you draft Jamar Chase, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
We both did, yep.
And we were like, if you draft Penei Sewell, you're building the start of something great.
Yep.
And we, for once, we're both wrong. Usually it's just you that's wrong.
Hold on, wait a second. I'm saying half wrong. I think Penei Sewell is still a franchise left tackle, and I think that the Lions are better for him.
Sure. I also want to point out at some point this year, I did say that Bengals had a chance to win the division, and you told me I was wrong. I may have been joking when I said that, but that's neither here nor there. I think we are looking at the start of a dynasty, though. Look at what the Bengals essentially have. There are two main holes probably on that roster, right? One, the offensive line, which is probably better than we expected. They've been working pretty well as a unit, but still have given up massive amounts of sacks and pressure from Joe Burrow.
Hold on, I'm calling
better than we expected. I thought they would have been the worst in the league.
I'm throwing the flag. Burrow got sacked 9 times by the Titans the week before. That offensive line is a sieve. There just hasn't been a team that can take advantage of it.
Sure, but I'm saying they were not the worst in the league, which is what I assumed they were going to be, was the absolute worst, but they were not the worst in the league from that standpoint. But still, terrible. They have a massive hole there. They need to fill the offensive line. But I think come the offseason, it's going to be a lot easier to say, hey, do you just want to come protect Joe Burrow because we have literal garbage here and you can just...
Well, they've got like the 3rd or 4th most cap space in the league in the offseason. We talked about this. They have all that. They have their draft picks. They could literally, I heard this on the radio, I'm stealing it. They can literally draft right tackles, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, throw them out on the field and go, one of the 7 of you are going to work, and we're going to hit on one of you. We don't know which one of you, but get all your fat asses up on that line. We're coming through. The first person lets Burrow get hit, you're cut, we're moving to the next one. They could do that and then sign 3 more free agents and say the same thing. All they need in the offseason is offensive line.
Yeah, well, they also need to replace Eli Apple because come on now.
Hold on. I don't think Eli Apple's been that bad. He dropped a pick 6. Don't get me wrong. Here's the other.
I want you to Google burnt toast. Okay, that's what his coverage looks like. Just burnt toast, nonstop getting torched.
Let me talk about the other side of this. Okay.
Okay.
The Chiefs. We have talked all year long about how Patrick Mahomes does not look like the Patrick Mahomes of old. I want to edit that. I think he looks like the Patrick Mahomes of old. Other teams are just capitalizing on the same throws he used to make that Travis Kelce, who was still amazing, Tyreek Hill, even McCole Hardman, some of his larger receivers that are not there anymore. I think that without the running game that he's had in past seasons, I think he's making the same throws. I think he's always played superhero ball. It's just the law of averages is just finally catching up with him. Is this the beginning of the Chiefs maybe showing, the chinks in their armor?
Did your shirt say I'm Skip Bayless Jr.? No,
it's not. It's not a hot take. It's a legitimate take. It took them. They got very hot in the middle of the season. For the playoffs, they beat the Bills in a good game. They lost to the Bengals in a very good game. Their defense got hot. It wasn't Mahomes that carried them through the season. Their defense turned it up.
I think Mahomes still played much better in the second half than he did the first half. Like, obviously, he had some issues, I think, early on where people were like, is Patrick Mahomes? Is something wrong with Patrick Mahomes? But then Mahomes was fine in the second half of the season. But, again, to the point.
Was he, though? Was he really
was
fun?
Better. Patrick Mahomes this season still had a very good year by overall quarterback standards, right? If you look at, I was looking at his stats the other day. I'm going to pull them up really quickly. Mahomes actually, I think, threw for this season 37 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, had a 98.5 QB rating, threw for 4,800 yards on a 66.3 completion rate. The exact same completion rate as last season, more yards than last season, one less touchdown than last season. The problem was the interceptions, right? The turnovers are what sort of got people being like, what's going on with Mahomes? But if you look at him, this is one more interception than what he threw in the crazy season of 2018 with the 50 touchdowns and the 5,000 yards. Statistically, the big issue is that his touchdowns were pretty much slightly above average. His interceptions were significantly more than what he's used to throwing, what we've seen in him, because he was in single digits 2 years prior. And his yards were pretty much right in the money with what we've considered a very good Patrick Mahomes year. I do think, to your point, though, the running game definitely impacted him, because when there's not a running threat, what essentially happens to you? It's why the Bengals have been so good, because everyone's afraid of Joe Mixon, as well as Joe Burrow, obviously.
Right. Well, let me just go on those numbers for a second. Remember, he played 2 more games this year than he did last year. He averaged 284 yards, whereas last year he averaged 316. Now, again, 2018 he averaged 316, or 318. 2020 he averaged 316. 2019 he averaged 287. Okay, so again, not bad. But like you said, his touchdowns, he threw one less touchdown this year with 2 extra games, and doubled his interceptions. He doubled his interceptions, and there were some throws where people were going, what is he doing? People were asking, what in the world is Patrick Mahomes doing? He is starting to feel the pressure of the fact that he is carrying that offense. They need to find a competent running back. Not Jarrett McKinnon. I love Jarrett McKinnon, but he's a receiving back. They have to find somebody that can take that load off him. Edwards-Helaire can't hold on the ball. Edwards-Helaire literally was in the doghouse most of the year when he wasn't injured because he fumbled.
I think Edwards-Helaire is still young. Like, we have seen other young running backs. We can talk about Tiki Barber, who was literally fumbleitis Jr., and then all of a sudden he learned to hold the football in an awkward way, and next thing we know, Tiki Barber wasn't fumbling ever again. I
think they need 2 things in the offseason. I think they need a big receiver, some guy that can go across the middle and catch, but not just Kelsey. I love Kelsey. I'm talking about somebody that starts out
like
flanked
a Chris
out
Conley type guy.
Exactly. Somebody that's going to get you 3rd and 5, and when Kelsey's double covered, where you don't have to worry about, you don't have to try to get Tyreek Hill down the field. And I think they have to get a compliment to Edwards-Helaire, that big bruising back that Patrick Mahomes every once in a while can just go, let's run 3, let's beat the hell out of the defensive line. Let's let defensive lines go after the run game a little bit and not pin your ears back whenever he snap, because that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing right now. Is they're just saying, screw it, we're just going to go right after Mahomes. Who cares about the running game? Find somebody that can really pull them back a little bit and give Mahomes some time in the pocket so he doesn't feel like he has to be Superman.
Sure. And I fully agree with you. I would just say I would add one more thing that they should be doing, and it's more centered around Patrick Mahomes. Take a step back from your deliverables that you're doing for all of your different endorsements. Mahomes was anywhere and everywhere, and I think this is a law of averages, right? You have only so much time that you can dedicate to, training and to preparation and like all that different stuff. And if you're doing so much, and some of that is being done during the off season, right? Still, to be fair, where he can batch record and batch do all these different things and focus more in the season. But at some point, this stuff's going to weigh on you. And also, get yourself a little separation from your younger brother.
That's what I was going to ask you. The younger brother and the wife. The younger brother and the wife are both the same problem. Like
Yeah,
they're
I
on
think
social media and they're giving. I don't want to call it his brand, but that's what it is. They're giving his brand a complete black eye.
it's just a weird thing because going into the season, if you talked about Patrick Mahomes, I would say 98% of people had a positive view on Patrick Mahomes, taking away people, like we took away fans from the division. Like if you objectively talk about Patrick Mahomes, 98% of people loved and raved about Patrick Mahomes as a person, as a quarterback, as a player, like all those different things. But this season, I would say it was 85% his younger brother, and then you could say some of the stuff that ended up transpiring with his wife as well,
Agreed.
which was then associated with Jackson. I think definitely hurt him to a degree. Um, Look, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is still going to be an upper echelon elite quarterback, one of the best we've ever seen do it. But to your point, they need to get those couple of things sort of situated on the team. And I think personally, he's got to have some sort of like come to Jesus moment talk with his family, especially his younger brother and his wife, to be like, look, I need less of what's happening out here.
Jackson Mahomes is kind of an encompassing of a lot of younger influencers these days. Where I just think, God, please don't do the old thing, but like.
You're doing the thing.
I know, but it does feel like there's a lack of respect in a lot of places.
Sean Taylor thing, for example, was like
there's a lack of respect going on, and just a lack of respect of history. I'm not talking about respecting your elders. I'm talking about respecting history of what things have gone on. You want to look at something? Look at DMCA on Twitch right now. It's the same damn thing. So, but talking about respect, I have disrespected the Rams almost constantly, but here they are. They're going to be in the Super Bowl. They beat the 49ers. I thought the 49ers were too good defensively and playing hot. Jimmy Garoppolo is just, he's the problem for the 49ers. There's rumors going around. They're looking to get him traded, and the Trey Lance era has started. The Rams, I worry about the Rams because Stafford is so hot and cold, so Jekyll and Hyde. How do you think the Rams... Well, first of all, talk about this matchup. Like, they beat down the 49ers. They had to come back, and I still felt like the Rams are going to win. They were down, 17-7 one point, and I was like, nah, it's no problem. The Rams are playing better.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely felt like a game that the Rams are winning the whole time despite being down. But I think any game that Kyle Shanahan is coaching and the team is up, you always think, like...
That's a good point.
There's a chance the team's coming back here, right? So even when they were down, I was like, this is Shanahan game. There's going to be something that lets them come back in, and not only... is it a Shanahan game? It's a Shanahan game where Jimmy G is his quarterback. We have seen through years past that he does not trust Jimmy G. Go back to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs in, what was that, 2018, 2019, whenever that essentially was,
right,
where he was not letting that dude throw the ball deep in the field because he did not trust Jimmy G, and he let him finally unleash one, and he miraculously was caught. I would have loved to have seen what Trey Lance would have done for that team if they had given him more time throughout the year and didn't go with Jimmy G, because you at least have the threat of the read option. The RPO game is a lot more dangerous with Trey Lance in there. We know he's not going to probably throw the football deep down the field super well yet because he's still a young player, and that's going to take a lot of progression for him. But Jimmy G's not throwing the ball deep down the field very well. So it felt like they were really just trying to go with Jimmy because he was somehow still winning games, and that defense was really propping them up. But yeah, whatever team gets the Jimmy G lottery this offseason, Godspeed, because you're not going to have a fruitful season or two with him at your roster.
I do worry that, like, maybe if you have Lance under center, like, you have to make the playbook way smaller for Lance.
Sure.
But,
rookie QB,
but how dynamic he is. He showed in the games he played how dynamic he was, how he can change games, not only with his legs, but he made some really good throws. It's the reads, catching up to the speed of the game. The matchup in the Super Bowl, and we'll talk more about our Super Bowl preview next week. The matchup in the Super Bowl, the key matchup for me is going to be that defensive line, including Von Miller of Los Angeles, versus Cincinnati's offensive line. If the Titans sacked Joe Burrow 9 times, think about what Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and that crew can do. I will say this, they sacked him 9 times, and he still won. Jalen Ramsey is a one-man gang in that defensive backfield that signed Eric Weddle at the beginning of the playoffs because they were so lacking of bodies. Yeah. If they can find a way to keep Joe Burrow on his feet, the Bengals might win this game.
I want nothing more than the Bengals to win. And look, Matthew Stafford's journey, right? You feel bad for that dude. He played in NFL Siberia for God knows how long. And that whole thing. Von Miller's already won one. Aaron Donald, you want to obviously see get a ring as well. But I can't help myself. But I don't have a rooting interest in this game, but dear
Say
God,
it.
I want Joe Burrow and the Bengals to
So
win.
do I.
And I also want it for Flemlo Raps, because Flemlo Raps has dealt with being a Bengals fan his entire life. And that dude makes some of the best YouTube content out there. Highly go recommend and
Go
subscribe to
check him
Flemlo
out,
Raps.
yeah.
But I would love to see just Bengals fans have something, because that franchise has been down tremendous. And this being this close, I need them to pull this miracle story off.
Do me a favor. Answer me one question. Everything else aside, are you cheering for Joe Burrow, or do you see him as like a villain?
No, I'm cheering for Joe Burrow.
So am I. And it's weird because he trashed, like, when they played the Ravens, like, he trashed them. He trashed the defense. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. What do you mean? We just play the game we play who's there. I'm legitimately infatuated with just the swagger he walks around with.
So good.
It's so insane because he's so even keeled, but so cocky at the same time. He's like the best wrestling heel I've ever seen. He is the cool wrestling, like the $1 million man heel. It's just like, just walking around. The diamond thing killed me, where he was like, one of the reporters asked him,
too much money.
if is it actually, are you actually wearing a diamond necklace? He goes, I make too much money for it not to be real. And I was like, you're damn right you do. I was literally cheering him. It's so crazy that I'm cheering on a divisional quarterback who's going to be a thorn in both of our team's sides for over a decade, because this dude is Hall of Fame pedigree written all over him. So we'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week. I just wanted to bring out that Joe Burrow has this insane way to make people cheer for him. And I can't wait. I really want him to succeed in the Super Bowl. It sounds crazy considering how he beat the doors off my Ravens. And to beat the doors off the Steelers. Who cares? Like, right?
Yeah.
From talking about two proud franchises on their way up, going into the Super Bowl, the biggest spectacle in sports, all kinds of great information, to the Washington Football Commanders. Okay, let me just say, I don't think the Commanders name itself is that bad. The production of how they did this and how just dumb the entire organization is in hiding this. You hid this name. You know they've known the name for months, okay? They hid this name for months and then give it away by not covering up one banner that a news reporter catches in a helicopter 12 hours before, and then they take a picture of a security guard standing outside of the press conference like this, right? With black... Oh, geez, I just turned my headset off. I just blew my ears out. Sorry. Sitting outside with the black covers over where the unveil's going to be, and 50 feet behind him in the picture is the new W standing proud at the main entrance of the stadium. What in God's name is wrong with this organization?
The same thing that's been wrong with them since we were kids. We're both DMV people. We have seen Dan Snyder be the... I'm not even saying from like a winning and losing standpoint. I'm just saying from like the dumb things, the Washington racial slurs, Washington football team, all they have done over this entire time. I will say I saw a tweet. I don't remember the guy's name, but it was one of the funniest tweets that I actually saw today talking about the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders. Jesus Christ. And he says, how do you go from, or they went from the people they oppressed to the oppressors. So they went from the Washington racial slurs to the Commanders. And I was in tears. I'm like, they have people are like pro football commentator or whatever is PFT commentator is already putting out like go commies shirts.
Did you see I mean, did you see Big Cat, what Big Cat tweeted out?
No.
It was it was the Riley Reid picture that everyone uses for the you're gonna make me calm. I went nuts. I was in tears, man. No. And the thing is, hashtag take command is from a San Antonio team by the same name that went defunct 2 years ago. Not even like a decade. They went defunct 2 years ago and had the hashtag take command on Twitter, still alive. The W looks like a child drew it.
It looks like Wario when they have it on the helmet.
Jerseys look like Arizona State, but they were designed by third graders. I will say the matte maroon helmet looks good. The black helmet has the weird W on the front of it, front and center. Like, I don't know what it is. It's overly military, and I want them to honor the military, but it's like they're honoring the military just because. There's no real military honor there. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's the worst release I've ever seen. Bro, the Baltimore didn't know it was the Ravens until they actually unveiled it in 96. Like, it didn't happen. Every other organization, whenever they make major changes, yes, there's leaks on the internet now, but somehow or another, they managed to do it in a positive way. You know what Dan Snyder did? Number one, he leaked it the night before. Number two, he leaked it the morning of. And then he did a press conference where he wouldn't take questions because he got too afraid of people asking him about all the crap he's done behind the scenes since all this crap started. Why? It is no surprise to me that so many big-time Washington fans have gone on to other teams. It doesn't surprise me in the least. And their field, their stadium is still a dumpster fire from the inside out.
What they should have done, I just don't understand how. I mean, technically they're in like Ashburn or whatever, so it's not technically DC, but you know, not every stadium is in the city.
The Southern Maryland Commanders is what they are.
Yeah. To me, this felt like a moment where they should have been coming out as well, talking about a new stadium, right? Like, this is a perfect opportunity to get ahead of that and say, like, we're looking into a new stadium or something. If they hope, dear God, I hope they are at this point. But I just don't know how the city of culture, right? We're talking about DC. We're talking about the melting pot of the USA, all the different culture, all the different food, all the different artists, all the different people that are in DC. And you couldn't make this something people actually cared about and wanted to attend. Instead, it was like something from The Office that's unveiled, and you're just like, what exactly is happening here? Like, you couldn't even, like, Wale could have had like a free concert or something going there. They could have had Rare Essence in the Backyard Band going. They could have had all these different people.
Foo Fighters. They could have brought Dave Grohl in. He loves doing shows down there.
Yeah, there's so much they could have done to make this something that fans could have been hyped about and just anticipating whatever. I mean, the Commanders website was forwarding to the official domain registrar of the NFL back in January. So, like, this is one of the worst kept secrets. So at least if you've been planning it for God knows how long, make it at least great for the actual unveiling rather than what the heck ever they just did today.
It encompasses everything that the Washington. By the way, their announcement video for that they're taking on the Commanders literally went back in and used all of the stuff that they were getting rid of. Every single one of the reasons they were getting rid of it. All of the slurs, just brought it right back to the front and said, hey, look, guys, look at the logo. Look at the Indian logo that we have all over the place. I get it, it's part of your team history. There was no reason to go back there. No reason to do a 2-minute video where a minute and a half of it was showing the logo you had to get rid of. I swear it's Dan Snyder. It all starts from the top. Crap trickles downhill. And that's the biggest load of crap in the NFL. Well, let me stop for a second because even oh, Jesus, I'm throwing controllers at myself. Even Dan Snyder looks like a smaller load of crap than what we're about to talk about. And boy, get your seatbelts buckled because Brian Flores is suing the NFL. Rightfully so. He's also going to be suing, what are the other teams? The Dolphins, the Giants, and the Broncos?
Yep.
That they did not adhere to the Rooney Rule. For those of you who don't know, the Rooney Rule means you must interview a minority candidate for a head coaching position that does not reside within your organization already. It must be an outside candidate. Some of you are going to go, oh, well, that's just a pity interview. Let me explain something to you. And it's something that I am explaining even though I don't get the right to explain. All right? Interviews to people of minority status, Black, Asian, Hispanic, all of it. didn't happen before 2003. When they did, it was such a minuscule rate. 2003 was when the Rooney Rule was instituted. Immediately, the number of minority head coaches doubled. It was like 2 to 3 before that. It doubled up to 6, 7, and 8. And throughout most of the 2000s, it stood around 6 to 7 and 8 coaches. It is now dropped back down to 1, and that is Mike Tomlin with Pittsburgh. You're not wrong. It has become a pity interview because the old boys club known as the NFL Owners Association has made it that way. The reason the Rooney Rule is important and the reason that the NFL needs to get back on the horse and start instituting it and enforcing it, which we'll talk about how it wasn't enforced, is because black head coaches will not get a fair shake in the league for any interviews without a prior connection if it is not enforced. That is the way of the world. That is what is happening. If you do not put minority candidates in anything in the world, Twitch, YouTube, NFL, MLB, the entire world, if you do not enforce and reinforce, if you not reinforce the fact that minority candidates deserve a place at the table, they will not get a shot. And I don't care how many white people, myself included, get pushed to the back of the line. That's what needs to happen to get, you ready for this? Not to get ahead, to get equal. Not even to get ahead, to get equal. That's where we stand right now. It's so embarrassing for me as a white man to even be having to say this, that just to get equal, just to get minorities equal with us, we have to push them ahead. We have to push them ahead. That shouldn't be the case, but it is. So stop arguing against, it's reverse racism, GGB. It's reverse racism. Screw off. You don't know the meaning of the word.
Yeah. This is wild to me, man. We're looking at Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is the only black head coach that we have in the NFL right now. Ron Rivera, I believe, is the only other minority coach that we have in the NFL, if I remember correctly, right? So with that, we have 2 of the 32 teams in the NFL are represented by minority coaches. We've had the Rooney Rule, since you mentioned, since 2003.
Yes.
I'm gonna go over some of the things that have transpired as sort of the Brian Flores piece, because there's a lot. And there are more and more head coaches that are coming out. Hugh Jackson just came out and said some things today. I didn't get a chance to actually go through that. I believe
it was about the 100,000
others
per loss. He insinuated that maybe he got that too. We'll talk. Let's talk about more what Flores happened. We'll add Jackson
Flores,
on here.
Sure. So basically, the first thing that was shocking to me is Flores comes out with this. Also, I love he did it in the first day of Black History Month. Thank you very much, Brian Flores, for that. That was incredible to me. But I also love that when he put this out, the NFL denied the allegations publicly within 2 hours of Brian Flores making that statement.
Of course he did.
That to me is unbelievable. More time was spent investigating deflated footballs than spending on Brian Flores' allegations. And there's no shot, even if they had brought that to them maybe a couple days prior or even a week prior, you could imagine, because all the time they would take to prepare that and necessarily get ready. There is no shot the NFL had adequate time to investigate all the claims that Brian Flores has made and have a fully functioning investigation. It is just not humanly possible for that. So to quickly dismiss that, especially with the stuff regarding the owner and the different things, that to me shows the NFL is insane. The NFL will gladly put on end racism on helmets, but then when something comes out about systemic racism within the actual NFL, they are quick to be like, no, that could never happen here in the good old boys club, which only has 2 out of 32 head coaches being a minority. So when you go through that, Flores provided evidence. The biggest thing to me was the Bill Belichick text messages that Brian Flores had. I believe he was interviewing on a Thursday. This is about a day or 2 prior. He's texting Bill Belichick, the head of the New England Patriots, for those people that are living under a rock. And Bill Belichick, during the text message exchange, essentially tells him, congrats on getting the job. And then Flores is like, I don't interview till Thursday. And then Bill's like, Giants? And then he's like, how did you hear that? And then Belichick says, I'm hearing great things from the Bills and the Giants about you. Congrats. And then Flores is like, wait, are you talking about me or Dabble, which is now the head coach of the Giants?
Right.
And then Bill then apologizes and is like, I messed up. I'm so sorry. But what that essentially shows is that Flores, who was scheduled for the interview on Thursday, it was a sham interview because the decision to hire Dabble had already been made before he ever got even remotely close to the building. Before he ever hopped on an airplane to go over there, they had already made the decision, which again shows that a lot of these teams have been using the Rooney Rule for what we consider a very long time in the same way. Flores talked about the Broncos job when he interviewed for that, I believe a season or 2 seasons, whatever that essentially was, or whenever Vic Fangio got hired. A similar thing was sort of what he said was happening there with Fangio. You also have the evidence about Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, who, again, this is what Mills was alluding to earlier. He allegedly offered Flores $100,000 per loss to tank the team. He also allegedly tried to orchestrate multiple tampering meetings between Flores and a prominent QB. I don't know if they ever said who that was. I'm assuming it was Deshaun Watson or maybe something of that nature. But for an owner to then go to their head coach and say, hey, for every loss you do, I'll give you $100,000, and then to violate NFL tampering rules and try to get your head coach involved in that, I don't think people understand that the big thing with that is conduct detrimental to the league, which means Flores by far would have been fired. There'd have been massive fines, obviously, associated with that. You could honestly say that Stephen Ross could potentially. This has never happened in the NFL. We've seen it in the NBA for conduct detrimental to the league, where owners were essentially removed or forced to sell their franchise. Something similar like this could happen in the NFL because they probably want to toss the blame on someone in the situation. But it's just a wild thing for him to go through all of this and then the NFL to just so quickly dismiss and say, not in our league. No, we publicly go out and will vehemently deny these and challenge these in court. I know people are talking about, okay, yes, he's put out this thing. He's suing the NFL. He's suing the three teams. What does he essentially want? So I went through today and found out what he essentially is asking for with his team of lawyers that he has. So he's asking for increasing.
Real quick, before you do this, I want to have people understand the severity of what he's doing. He's falling on a sword for minority coaches because his career as an NFL coach is over after what he's doing right now. He is going to be untouchable. No other owner is going to bring him anywhere close. And he is a very good coach. He showed that this year. He is a very good and up-and-coming coach. He is going to blackball himself, excuse the term, from the league for doing what he's doing. And I want you to listen very carefully to this list that GGB is going to go down. He's not doing this for money. He's going to get paid. He's not doing this for money. I want you to listen to what Brian Flores has stated that he wants.
Yeah, and I think two things I'll touch on before I necessarily jump into that. Flores was super adamant about just, obviously, to your point of wanting to make sure that he does this for the good of the game and for future coaches. And he understands that he is, to your point, like putting himself in a situation where he likely won't be hired. But in the event that Flores does get hired, that does not disprove or devalue his lawsuit, because essentially that is a different organization taking ownership in him. He is suing the NFL and obviously three specific teams. So if he got hired by like the Texans, for example, dear God, don't take that job because there's an owner there that's also unbelievably terrible.
Right.
That's still not going to devalue what he essentially is doing through, his lawsuit. So what Flores is essentially asking for in his lawsuit is increased influence of Black individuals in hiring, meaning individuals that are part of the hiring process for this within the organization. Increase objectivity of hiring and terminating GMs, head coaches, and coordinators, because right now there is so much subjectivity involved in it. You look at what happened with Flores. When Brian Flores was fired, the news hit Twitter. Nobody was saying, oh, that makes sense. Everyone was saying, what?
Right.
Flores fired?
Yeah.
And you also quickly noticed there were stories that were very quickly fed to certain individuals that are analysts and, people that cover the NFL that were saying, oh, he didn't have a good relationship with his teammates.
Yeah.
That is always what is done to Black head coaches or minority head coaches or anyone in a minority situation. Like, oh, they had a personal problem, or that. Every report we've seen coming out from players or former players or people talking about him, even coaches that have worked with him, have said that's not Brian Flores.
It's funny.
Look how we can in interviews.
Funny how that happens in a lot of aspects of life, huh? Oh, they're a problem. They don't work well with other people. They were troublesome in conversation. They, by the way, I'm using they very, very adamantly in quotes.
Yeah. It's the same racist undertones that have happened, and it just translates to football as well, which is unfortunate. Flores is also additionally asking for increased number of Black coordinators, obviously helping coaches within a coaching tree, hopefully, move up through. Again, going back to the objectivity of hiring and firing of coaches, coordinators, GMs, etc. Incentivize hiring retention of black GMs, head coaches, and coordinators. This is something that was pitched, I believe, a couple of years ago. I think the NFL ultimately decided against it, but it was something around sort of, I think, draft pick, like conditional draft pick compensation for having retention for minority head coaches in the NFL. And then one of the last things he's asking for is transparency of pay for GMs, head coaches, and coordinators. This is a huge one because, again, whether you're a minority or you're a woman or something of that nature, if you are not essentially a white male in sports or in a lot of places in the workplace, there's traditionally going to be a pay discrepancy or pay gap. And because people are so, I guess, just not used to talking about pay or talking about their compensation, you're always going to see something going there. So I think if you look at what his demands are, it's not about him. Like, this is about setting up the future class of coaches to be not judged differently, it's to be judged the same. That is all Flores is trying to do, is have a crop of coaches that comes in after him. He's not even worried about himself. He's talking specifically about coaches that are coming in, whether it's players that turn to coaches or young kids that want to go through a coaching tree through, rec league to high school to, elevating themselves with the standards, to just be judged and evaluated the same way as everybody else, not under an additional microscope. That's all he's asking for.
He shouldn't have to go through this. I'm happy he's standing up because someone eventually was going to have to. But you know what's going to happen. Like, they're going to pay him off, or it's going to get better for 3 years.
I hope he doesn't take it if he does.
I know, I was going to say, I hope he doesn't either. It doesn't, from what he's asking for, it doesn't sound like he's going to. It sounds like he knows the situation he's putting himself in, and he's ready to essentially take that on and be like, listen, I'm not coaching anymore. He knows, he has to know that they're not going to touch him anymore. So might as well help the game as much as he possibly can, which really sucks because going into this season, Brian Flores wasn't on the hot seat. He was looked at in Miami as being the head coach that's going to bring them out of the doldrums. And if you saw this year, I mean, he had a win streak that was showing how good of a coach he is for that team. It's incredibly disappointing that we have gotten to the point in this world. It's 2022, man. It's 2022, and minorities still cannot get a fair shake. And anywhere, the NFL is one of the most scrutinized public entities in the world, and even they cannot give minorities it is what it is, man. I hope Brian Flores not only gets paid from this, but I hope every single owner that has wronged any black candidate, Hispanic candidate, Asian candidate, female candidate, because there have been some that have come through there too, I hope every one of them gets the team taken away from them. And that's because that's what needs to happen. It won't. But you got to break up the old boys club. The Rooney Rule is great. Any more incentivization is great. Motivate them to do what you need them to do. But until you break up the old boys club at the top, nothing's going to change. You want proof? No one talks about what happened with Robert Kraft. You know why no one talks about what happened with Robert Kraft? Because Roger Goodell is there to protect all 32 guys.
Yeah. And I guess I have two things left to say on this subject. Is the number one thing is that I hope this litigation, I know the NFL is going to move for dismissal. They're going to have their lawyers, their 700 lawyers on this immediately and try to move for grounds of dismissal and then try to resolve it within their own arbitration court, which we know is going to be nothing. It's going to be a slap on the wrist for Stephen Ross. It's going to be nothing for these additional teams. They're going to say the process was, held to a T and it's going to be no issues at that point. So I hope this is able to go into the court system. I hope this class action lawsuit gets only stronger by additional head coaches coming forward, not only with their stories, but with their evidence as well. So this can be proven in the court of law. And I hope that when this is sort of resolved, that it's resolved in a way that's not like the Washington football team sexual misconduct scandal. That's not like the other scandals we've seen in the NFL, especially look at Kaepernick and what essentially happened there. I hope this is resolved in a way where the findings are public. They cannot be restricted. They are public, and we are able to finally know what is being said, how things are being handled, and how these organizations that have been running for God knows how long in shisty ways and terrible ways and doing things in the dark, they finally come to light. That's genuinely what I hope we ultimately see, because without real transparency, this will only continue to happen. And I think the only hope that I sort of have outside of that as well is Flores is hopefully laying the groundwork for a lot of these different teams and the leagues, obviously, to sort of go through a process of reevaluating how these hiring processes are going. I hope we see with the amount of money that athletes are making today, you're seeing a lot of minority athletes make generational wealth for their families. I'm hoping we see these same generational athletes. Look at Dwayne Wade, for example, getting minority ownership in the Utah Jazz. I hope we start seeing more and more athletes invest, whether it's in their league that they were a part of after they retire or into a different league. I know Patrick Mahomes, for example, already is investing, I believe, in the Kansas City Royals in the MLB. I think he's invested in a soccer club as well. But I hope you start to see more and more athletes invest into these teams and become major partners, become maybe the majority owner at that point. We could see LeBron James do that probably 5 years after his career's over with how much generational wealth he's essentially generated. And I hope we see more and more athletes get involved so that they can look at things holistically and be like, this is not going to happen anymore. Because until we get sort of minority owners into some of these leagues, the same problems are going to rear up time and time again. Because to Mill's point, commissioners like Roger Goodell are typically there to shield the owners from any wrongdoing.
Amen. Amen. Last question. How confident are you that this is going to do anything? That's all I need to hear. Honestly, that's all I need to hear. I wasn't expecting an answer. I was going to give you 1 to 10, but that feels minimizing the entire problem. That's all I needed to hear, man.
I cross my fingers and I hope, but it's one of those things where we have seen things that are the contrast of whether it's right or wrong is very clear in previous years, and we've seen those things fall by the wayside. So I am hoping and I pray that Brian Flores gets, the justice he deserves, but I just don't know when it comes to the NFL if any of that's actually going to happen.
Go get your bag, Brian Flores. Take every single one of them for everything they're worth.
Amen.
Next week, just a heads up, we are going to be talking about the Super Bowl. We'll be doing a whole Super Bowl preview, talking a little bit more. I want to get into the MLB labor situation. It's not any closer. It doesn't look like we're going to have an MLB season on time. And then obviously just, grilling the hell out of you because it's what I do best.
I don't know if you would do that best, but I mean, you try, but it doesn't really work for you at the time. I would also say we have been obviously teasing that we're having our third host joining the show. We do not have a date for you, but do know that it is coming. It's just there's a lot of stuff in the works, okay? When you're big time people on here with millions and millions of viewers like Mills and I have,
wait, what?
Things take a little bit of time.
What?
Well, Mills, not me. I don't really have millions of viewers, but
wait, what?
It's the beanie. Anyways, we're going to have our third co-host at some point in the future. We're going to do our best to get you guys a date. But outside of the co-hosts, there's also going to be a few other surprises that we haven't necessarily hinted at yet. But I think a lot of you will be super excited about. But if you've enjoyed what the Overplayed podcast has grown to be, I think the future of what sort of Mills, myself, and this third individual, along with some other talented people behind the scenes that we're working on, I think you'll genuinely be in love with it. But if you haven't already, hit that follow button here on Twitch. Make sure you give us 5 stars, whether you're watching or listening to us on Spotify or on Apple or whatever other services are out there. Watch us on YouTube. We have the full VODs up on YouTube as well. But we will catch you guys in the next one. Be safe, be smart. Tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys in the next one.
Ciao.